Hi, everybody. I wanted to chat a little bit today about a concept that I've been reading up on a little bit. It's been coming up more and more in terms of home-based treatment to some extent in our COVID-19 season that we're in. Definitely home-based. And so a little disclaimer to throw in there is just to say that if you feel like you need hospitalization, if you need oxygen, if you need a little bit of extra care, don't hesitate to go to a hospital if you possibly can. So please don't take this as a fail-safe treatment or as a solution to oxygen deprivation. So so what I've been reading up on is something called proning. It's a concept that's been around for many years, that they've been using it in more the ICU facilities for patients that are in acute respiratory distress. And so it's a case of putting people into a prone position, which means lying on your tummy. And what that does is that by lying on your tummy, it allows a little bit more space in the back of the lungs or the back of the thoracic cavity, which is where 60% of your lung tissue and your lung capacity is in that in the posterior part of your thoracic area. So it's in the back of that thoracic area. The idea behind the proning is that it creates a bit more space. It gives space for movement. And when you're in a supine position, which is lying on your back, that the increased abnormal secretions that come with, cases of pneumonia and settle into the lungs, that if you're in a supine position lying on your back, that those secretions, that increased fluid, will then collect into the back of your lung space, which is the majority of your lung space, so your respiratory availability, and that by doing that, it decreases your respiratory capacity. So in terms of proning, it's to allow for those alveoli that may have collapsed into the posterior part of the lungs, that it gives them a chance to be re-recruited and to start functioning again, to increase the capacity of your lungs. So lying in a prone position on your tummy does come with one or two contraindications. So obviously being heavily overweight, so morbidly obese, would be a contraindication. Obviously, any spinal injuries, any facial injuries, and then there's the predisposition to bed sores, because you're spending a lot of time in a proning position, which I'll explain shortly. And then lastly, being 24 or more weeks pregnant can be a contraindication, but you can probably get around that to some extent with bolstering and using pillows and just offloading the pressure so that you don't have that pressure on the abdomen. So the actual mechanism of proning, the idea is that you want to be doing it between 16 to 18 hours a day. So in a 24-hour cycle, that you need to be doing it you can do it in chunks. So it can be 30 minutes up to 2 hours, spending time in a prone position. There are 4 different positions that they recommend that all have a similar functionality. The first one is obviously on your tummy. Head can be turned to one side. You can put pillows under your feet, under your tummy, under your chest, maybe under your head. So kind of whatever makes you as comfortable as possible lying on your tummy. A lot of people will struggle with lower back pain when they're in that prone position. So just bolstering a little bit to keep yourself in that position, so to increase your adherence to that as much as possible for as long as possible is really helpful. Then the second proning option would be lying on your one side and maybe turning the shoulder forwards a little bit, so bolstering yourself enough that you can be to the side but still as prone as possible. Then to the other side, so to the left or the right, and those are your 2 and 3 options. And then your 4th option would be in a sitting position. So anything, it seems, is better than lying flat on your back. So if you're in a sitting position, 60 degrees or up to 90 degrees is where you want to be in terms of your proning position. And then, like I said, 16 to 18 hours a day. They did find that patients within about an hour of starting proning, even in awake proning, within an hour, it was increasing the oxygen saturation levels. So definitely some sort of an impact going on there in terms of releasing the pressure in that posterior thoracic cavity and allowing the body to recruit more alveoli, which are those little balloony things that kind of send the oxygen out into your body. So it seems that there's largely anecdotal evidence. We haven't had large-scale research. I think the doctors and researchers are busy with other stuff right now. But in terms of anecdotal evidence, it seems that that's been used quite a bit in terms of hospitals where patients maybe can't get onto a respirator or onto some sort of mechanical assistance, that even proning is helping a little bit just to sustain them until they can get onto a ventilator, or that they are actually able to avoid going onto a ventilator in totality. So that's pretty exciting. But like I did say, it's certainly not something that you would use as a fail-safe treatment, and it's certainly not something that you want to rely on at home if you feel like you do actually need hospitalization or extra assistance or increased oxygen going into your body. So just bearing that in mind. So there are a couple of little exercises or breathing techniques that I wanted to go through that I think in general will help us. So obviously our posture is super important in terms of allowing oxygen to get into our lungs as best as possible and allowing enough space for our lungs to expand to get enough oxygen in. So whether we're suffering from COVID-19 or pneumonia or whatever the case is, it's always a good idea, obviously, to increase our lung capacity. So why not do a couple of little movements? Obviously, the first thing that you would want to aim for if you're unable to move and you're feeling incredibly fatigued and you're really, really struggling, but you are not hospitalized, even if you are hospitalized, it might be worthwhile bearing in mind. But the first thing would be to practice this proning behavior as far as you can possibly adhere to that. And then diaphragmatic breathing is something that is an interesting way of just consciously expanding and contracting your lung space. So if you sit with one hand on the bottom of your sternum, the other hand at the top of your sternum, and just breathing as deeply as you can, I want you to breathe through your nose. So you place the tongue at the top of your palate, and you breathe in and out through your nose without allowing your shoulders to lift up and down. So as you breathe in and out, you're expanding into your rib cage. You could put your hands on either side of your ribs, otherwise one up, one down. It gives you a good idea as to whether your diaphragm is allowing your ribs to expand and contract. So breathing in and out, tongue at the top of your palate, through the nose. You could breathe out through the mouth if you want to. It's my Pilates brain kicking in there. And you can see very little movement in terms of the shoulders lifting. So a tendency is to go and breathe out, so up and down with the shoulders. You actually want to be expanding into the rib cage. That's where the majority of your movement or available space might be in terms of the lungs. So diaphragmatic breathing, and you can do that for 5 to 10 minutes. It can be a great way of meditation and relaxation too, and just really good for increasing. So going to full lung capacity and then full closure of lung capacity. That's with all of these exercises you want to be doing to the maximum in and to the maximum out. Then the next one's a little bit of an awkward one, but don't worry about this. I'm going to feel a lot more awkward doing this on a video than you're going to feel doing this at home alone. So that's all good. But it's called yawning to smile. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a huge yawn, the biggest yawn that you can. You're going to stretch your arms backwards, and then you're going to pause and you're going to smile once you've exhaled for 3 to 4 seconds. So let's see if we can do this. So we do a huge yawn. Big stretch backwards, opening the chest as wide as you can. Your biggest deep breath in. Relaxing back down and smile. So it's a little bit awkward if you think about it, but it's a really, really cool way to stretch out all of those intercostal muscles, your pectoralis muscles, so the chest muscles, to increase the stretch in terms of your fascia around your neck and your throat and your face. And actually it just feels really good to have a good stretch and a yawn, so that one could work. These are all just little ideas that I've gotten, doing a bit of reading, watching a couple of videos online, and kind of just putting it all together in one place for you. So the yawning to smile, that one you can also do sort of between 5 and 10 maybe repetitions of that. So with the diaphragmatic breathing, you can do 5 to 10 minutes. And then with this one, you can do 5 or 10 repetitions of that. And then the next one would be one that I need to move back a little bit, but it's the cat stretch, a good old classic. So we're going to go into just a 4-point kneeling position. So on all fours, find your neutral spine. And then as you breathe all the way out, so you're going to exhale as you lift yourself into a rounded cat stretch. So breathing out, rounding into the spine, looking to your belly as far as possible. And then as you breathe in, you're coming back to your neutral position and holding it there. And then breathing out again and pause at the top of that contracted position, so that rounded position. So breathe out. Pause for a few seconds. Come back to neutral. So again, you're rounding the spine, and what that's doing is it's creating extra mobility and extra movement in terms of that posterior thoracic cavity, just giving you a little bit more space there. So that's a pretty cool one that I quite like. Then the next one is it's a chest stretch. And you can either do this one in the doorway. So you're going to take both of your hands, you're going to place your forearms up against the door, and you can step through the door, leaving your arms behind you so that you get a nice stretch into the chest. Alternatively, you could take one arm up, place your forearm on the corner of the door or the wall, and then turn your body away so that you feel a nice stretch into the chest. So it's all about releasing those chest muscles, improving your postural position so that you can increase the lung capacity. So that's really what that little stretch is going to do. For your chest stretch, you want to hold it for 15 to 20 seconds. So just holding that position where you have your elbow as far behind you as possible, keeping your shoulder relaxed and stretching out the front of that chest muscle. Okay, one more to go. I'm going to do a little roll down. So standing with the feet slightly apart, you're going to tuck the chin in. As you roll down, you're going to exhale all the way out. So you're going to roll down, breathing out, rolling through the spine. You're trying to get yourself as low as you can. Keep your knees soft, round the spine, breathing out. Pause for a few seconds, and then you're going to breathe in as you restack your spine and stretch to the sky. So breathe in. Breathing in, stretching up, reaching for the sky. You're still breathing in. And then breathing out to take the arms down to your sides. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, rolling yourself all the way down. Pause. You're pausing at the bottom with empty lungs. And then breathing in. Restacking your spine as you come back up. You're placing one vertebra on top of the other. Arms reach for the sky. Deep breath in. Fill up the lungs. Stretch out the rib cage. And breathing out. Arms down to your sides. So it's quite a cool way to do breath work as well as mobility work. So you might find that the slightly more active, so that cat stretch, and then the roll down breath work, you might find that that is something that might come later if you've really battled in terms of your recovery from COVID or pneumonia or whatever the case is, whatever respiratory struggle you're going through. But you might well find that those more mobile or active movements and breath work will be quite tiring initially. So starting with the proning, that seems to be something that is particularly helpful in terms of increasing the amount of oxygen that you can get into your body and into your lungs. So it's just something that's interesting me. And I hope this has been interesting and maybe a little bit informative. And I really hope that you don't have to use it and that you're not suffering from anything too desperate. But if you are, I send love and strength and thoughts and prayers. And I really do hope that you can recover quickly. And even if you are not suffering from something, let's move and let's increase our capacity to get oxygen into our bodies, because it actually will make us feel good and healthy and well. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you got this far, and have a beautiful evening. Bye.